Aguero! Oh, genius! Absolute genius!
This is the 22nd of August, and we're here after a round of fixtures that were really interesting across the top 5 leagues. All the leagues have started now, and we're going to get into all the action that we witnessed, including Liverpool, Man City, Spurs, and a little bit of La Liga with Barcelona. This is Pressing Matters, brought to you by On the Mic. I have with me today two very knowledgeable football fans, Usama, Javed, and Talha, Wani. Thank you for being with us. And we're going to get stuck into the action that we saw. But before that, I have a weird stat of the day, guys. Did you know Teemu Pukki has as many Premier League hat-tricks as Cristiano Ronaldo and Dennis Bergkamp? That is absolutely wild, that both those amazing players had only one Premier League hat-trick, and Pukki has just equaled that record. Starting off with Liverpool's defense, if you guys saw the match, which I'm sure you did, the defense has not been the same as last season Liverpool ki. Last season आपने देखा Liverpool conceded the least amount of goals in the Premier League. They were on 22. Man City were on 23. If you look at the XG stats from last season, Liverpool overperformed in defense, partly due to Alisson, but at the same time their XG stats were also really, really good. इस season though, उनकी XG भी काफ़ी बुरी है. In the two matches, they have an XG of around 2.73, which is the 13th best in the league, which is really telling because they've had easy fixtures. One was against Norwich at home and one was against Southampton. You wouldn't really put those teams as the top scoring sides in the league. और उन्होंने already 2 goals concede कर दिए हैं. So I'm going to start off with you, Usama. Why do you think this has changed? I mean, the personnel is the same, the manager is the same. What's changed?
Liverpool's defense. We all know that last year Liverpool kind of exceeded their expectations. That is, they performed extremely well on the part of defense. We usually talk about their offense like Salah, Mane and Firmino, that they are a very, very good triplet. There are a number of goals and assists between them. But last season what stood out was their defense. They're especially built around Van Dijk and Alisson, and our two wonderful fullbacks, Trent Alexander-Arnold and Robertson. Now the problem this season has been that Liverpool has played 2 games, but in both of those games, the defense hasn't been up to the usual standards. As you have seen the game against Norwich and Southampton, Liverpool conceded an awful lot of shots as compared to previous season, and apart from that, the defense didn't quite look assured as compared to the previous seasons. Now there are a number of reasons for that. First of all, Liverpool have deployed, or you can say employed, the new high defensive line this season that has been against what they did last year. Now, why have they employed this high defensive line? The first reason for that is that VAR, or you can say the video assistant refereeing, has been introduced for the very first time in Premier League this season. VAR can be used to check very, very close offsides and a number of other things. And for this reason, Jurgen Klopp has quite changed his defensive tactics and employed this high defensive line. And apart from that, another reason that I think is that a number of our players have been playing in tournaments over the summer, like Van Dijk was playing in League of Nations, and apart from that, the likes of Robertson and Alexander-Arnold were busy in international friendlies, and a number of our midfielders, especially Fabinho, were busy in the Copa America. Now, due to that, because these players have been playing in a different system over the summer, when they return back, they are back to the Liverpool system. It's not always easy to once again integrate, because on paper ये हमें काफ़ी easy लगता है कि जी प्लेयर वापस आ गए हैं, वही डिफेंस है, वही 4 प्लेयर्स हैं, ये इन्होंने लास्ट सीज़न बहुत अच्छा खेला है और इस सीज़न भी वैसे ही करेंगे. ऐसे बिल्कुल नहीं होता, क्योंकि लास्ट सीज़न और बात थी, बीच में गए हैं अपने इंटरनेशनल टीम्स के अंदर, वहाँ कम्प्लीटली डिफरेंट सिस्टम होता है प्ले का, डिफरेंट टैक्टिक्स होते हैं, तो वापस आके बिल्कुल वही परफॉर्मेंस देना, उसी लेवल के ऊपर देना मुश्किल होता है. ये ऑन पेपर ईजी लगता है लेकिन होता नहीं है ऐसे. तो मेरे ख्याल से in my opinion there have been 2 basic reasons behind the Liverpool's opening 2 weekend defensive lapses. Number 1, the employment of VAR, due to which Jurgen Klopp changed his tactics, and number 2, are players who have been participating in international tournaments over the summer.
Right, that's really interesting stuff that you talked about. लेकिन इसके अंदर अगर हम देखें तो इंटरनेशनल टीम्स के लिए तो प्लेयर्स जाते हैं एंड दैट्स फाइन, उस सिस्टम के लिए अडेप्ट करते हैं और फिर वापस आ जाते हैं, विच माइट टेक सम टाइम टू एडजस्ट बैक टू लिवरपूल सिस्टम. लेकिन तलहा, आई वांट टू टॉक अबाउट what I think is a problem with midfield rather than defense. Usama very rightly pointed out that season defensive line और भी high है because of VAR, because now there's less of a chance कि human error की वजह से you're going to get caught out and everything's absolutely scrutinized to the nth degree. लेकिन I think इस साल मसला ये आ रहा है कि high defensive line के what you need is कि जब high defensive line आप employ कर रहे हो तो you need your midfield to be very vigilant and up to the mark in terms of stopping people who are going to play that pass. So people who are going to play the through pass, if you have players who are good enough, they're going to play it at the right time and they're going to play a good pass. और हमने दोनों matches में ये देखा है, especially against Norwich, Liverpool's midfielders failed to close down the player who was making the pass to, say, Pukki, and that's how they got him. So do you think this is more of an issue with the back four? Is Alexander-Arnold, for example, not performing up to the mark? He's not been at that level, but is that one of the reasons why, or is it down to midfield and overall structure?
So there are multiple reasons why I think Liverpool is doing bad. I don't think midfield is one of the key reasons, primarily because I don't think midfield was their strength last year anyways. When they started out last year, they had problems integrating people like Naby Keita, problems integrating people like Fabinho, and it just wasn't the most solid, defensively solid a midfield there was. They had a high work rate, there were workhorses, but there was no very strong defensive midfielder who could provide a whole lot of cover and who could close down those gaps. So I don't think that you had a very strong defensive midfield to begin with. I think the most important problem, and I think this has to be kept in mind, is that a majority of this playtime has been without Alisson. And the thing with Alisson is, as you said, they overperformed last season primarily because of Alisson. So now you have two issues. Number one, you have a lack of a player who I think was largely intimidating for a lot of teams, especially when he played in the Champions League and when he started off very well in his Liverpool career. So I think teams will probably want to attack more when they know that there's a backup keeper. And secondly, who the backup keeper is. Adrian is a decent keeper, but it's important to keep in mind who he is and where he comes from. He's someone who just basically, lost his job at West Ham. So to lose your job at West Ham, which isn't the most defensively solid club, to I think a 34 or 33-year-old keeper in Fabianski, as good as he might be, is it says a lot about what kind of keeper you are. You're never going to be top class, and you're definitely not going to hold the candle to Alisson. Secondly, I think it's important to keep in mind the high line, because Usama was very right in pointing out the high line, and the high line is especially more effective in weakening the defense when I don't think you're keeping up the defensive work rate to match that high line. And I think you see it in, for example, Trent Alexander-Arnold in Southampton, where he was playing more like Trippier and less like himself last season, because he needs to start tracking back. And I don't think that these players are used to tracking back. They're not used to working to get the ball as much. They're not used to running back and stopping players from coming in behind, and they suffered because of it. So I think those are two main reasons. I don't think that international fixtures are as big a reason. Last year you had the World Cup. So if anything, the World Cup should have been had a bigger effect on your performance, but it didn't. Only a few players played in the Nations League, and that to a maximum of 2 or 3 matches. So I think your semi-finals and your finals were happening. So I don't think that the international fixtures were a reason. I do think the high line is a big reason. I do think that the goalkeeper is a big reason. I don't think that the midfield is a key reason, though it might be.
Right, that's... I agree with the fact that I don't think the international fixtures might have been as big a reason. But I also think that the talk about Alisson and Adrian is slightly different from Liverpool's problem right now, because if you look at the XG of the goals the shots that they've conceded, basically, they should be conceding around 3 per game, in those 2 games, right? And the problem is that जब आप XG conceded की बात करते हो तो फिर you're not taking into account the keeper per se, because you're looking at the quality of chance. Last season, Liverpool, because of Alisson, conceded 22 goals when they should have conceded 30, right? That's the XG figures. This season, if we chart this over 38 games, they're going to concede over 40 in terms of XG. And okay, Alisson can bring that out down to like 35. But what I'm saying is that Liverpool this season are giving away chances of a higher quality and in higher numbers than they were last season. So that's a really big problem. And I think that problem might be something that they need to look out for against Arsenal. They have Aubameyang, they have Lacazette, they have Pepe, they have Ceballos. In my view, they have like definitely at the very least the fourth best attack in the league, maybe even third. It's a toss-up between them and Spurs in terms of who will score more goals. But Osama, what do you think? Can Liverpool cope and keep a clean sheet against Arsenal on Saturday?
Okay, so I just want to come back to the high defensive line once more. So the thing is that against the match we had against Southampton, there was a chance that Che Adams missed. There was a cross that came from Valerie, and the Che Adams was rightly positioned in between Van Dijk and I guess it was Joe Gomez. Now what happens when you are using a high defensive line is that your main focus is that you have to succeed in getting that offside trap. That's the main thing in high defensive line. So when you are looking for that offside trap, the main things that you miss is कि आपके साथ वाले डिफेंडर और आपके बीच कितनी स्पेसिंग है, आपके सेंटर डिफेंडर और आपके फुल बैक के अंदर कितनी स्पेसिंग है. तो दिस इज़ वन थिंग जो आपको एक कॉम्प्रोमाइज़ करना पड़ता है व्हेन यू आर यूजिंग हाई डिफेंसिव लाइन. Now coming towards your question, Ismail, that will Liverpool be able to cope with Arsenal's attack? First of all, I think is कि इस गेम के लिए हमारे पास there is a full week of preparation, so certainly Klopp would fulfill a number of problems that existed over the first 2 weeks. Secondly, एक प्लस पॉइंट जिसके बारे में मैं बात करना चाहूँगा वो है कि our Ox Alexander Chamberlain is back. I personally think कि जो हमारे पास बाकी मिडफील्डर जैसे वाइनाल्डम, मिलनर, हैंडरसन, इवन नबी केटा, वो उनसे थोड़ा डिफरेंट है. बिकॉज आई रिमेंबर दैट उससे प्रीवियस सीजन में व्हेन ऑक्स गॉट इंजर्ड अगेंस्ट AS रोमा, ही वाज इजीली आवर बेस्ट मिडफील्डर एट दैट टाइम. मैनचेस्टर सिटी के अगेंस्ट उसने गोल किया 2 दफ़ा और वो भी कह लें कि आउट ऑफ बॉक्स. और जो ऑक्स की एक स्पेशल बात जो मुझे लगती है, जो उसके अंदर एक ड्राइव है, मतलब वो प्रॉपर एक बॉक्स टू बॉक्स मिडफील्डर लगता है. और बॉक्स टू बॉक्स मिडफील्डर खेलते खेलते वो एकदम बॉल विंग पे ले लेता है. उसके अंदर इतनी एनर्जी है कि मतलब वो क्रॉस भी दे सकता है, पास भी खिला सकता है, और देन उसके अंदर शूटिंग एक्यूरेसी भी और पावर भी है. तो दिस इज़ वन प्लस पॉइंट दैट आई थिंक लिवरपूल के पास इस वीकेंड होगा. नो ऑक्स हैज़ लाइक 2 games फॉर हिम. उसने चेल्सी के अगेंस्ट खेले 45 मिनट्स. अनफॉर्चुनेटली उसके अंदर इतना अच्छा परफॉर्म नहीं कर सका क्योंकि वो फ्रंट 3 में खेल रहा था. और जैसे कि उसने ही हैज़ हिमसेल्फ सेड अ नंबर ऑफ टाइम्स कि हिज बेस्ट पोजीशन इज़ प्लेइंग इन द मिडफील्ड 3. उसने 90 मिनट्स पूरे किए हैं, साउथहैम्पटन के अगेंस्ट मिडफील्ड 3 में खेला है, और आई बिलीव कि ही वॉज द बेस्ट मिडफील्डर इन दैट गेम फॉर लिवरपूल. और अब मैं समझता हूँ कि वो आर्सेनल के अगेंस्ट इससे ज़्यादा बेहतर परफॉर्म करेगा. और उसके बाद जहाँ तक हाई डिफेंसिव लाइन की बात है, आई स्टिल थिंक कि लिवरपूल को कुछ प्रॉब्लम्स होंगे. 2 games आर स्टिल नॉट इनफ फॉर इम्प्लीमेंटिंग दैट स्ट्रेटजी फॉर लाइक 70 to 80 minutes इन फुल गेम. बट आई स्टिल थिंक कि स्लाइटली बेहतर होगा. और वापस आते हैं हम एलिसन और एड्रियन के इशू के ऊपर. एक जो एड्रियन का इशू है वो ये है कि एड्रियन इज़ नॉट योर टिपिकल बॉल प्लेइंग गोलकीपर. एलिसन को भी स्टार्ट में थोड़े प्रॉब्लम्स हुए हैं. एलिसन ने लास्ट सीजन लेस्टर के अगेंस्ट एक मिस्टेक की थी जिसके ऊपर गोल भी हुआ था, लेकिन फॉर्चुनेटली वी वन दैट गेम 2-1 और उससे इतना फ़र्क नहीं पड़ा. लेकिन द थिंग हियर विद एड्रियन इज़ दैट कि एड्रियन प्लेड इन वेस्ट हैम, एंड वेस्ट हैम इन जनरल इज़ अ टीम नोन एज जो कि लॉन्ग बॉल खिला के अपने स्ट्राइकर्स तक बॉल पहुँचाती है. दे डोंट बिलीव इन बिल्ड अप प्ले. सो एड्रियन के पास ये स्पेशलिटी नहीं है कि बॉल प्ले करे. तो आई डोंट थिंक कि वो 2 games खेल के या 3-4 games खेल के अपने फीट पे कंफर्टेबल होगा या अच्छी बॉल खिलाएगा. तो एड्रियन में ये क्वालिटी इतनी जल्दी नहीं आने वाली. इवन जब तक वो लाना शुरू हो जाएगा तब तक एलिसन वापस आने वाला होएगा. तो आई डोंट थिंक कि एड्रियन से हमें इतनी एक्सपेक्टेशन रखनी चाहिए कि ही वुड असिस्ट अस इन बिल्डिंग अप फ्रॉम बैक. सो आई थिंक कि डिफेंसिव प्रॉब्लम एग्जिस्ट करेंगी, लेकिन टू सम एक्सटेंट एलेक्जेंडर, Oxlade-Chamberlain, Fabinho, and the likes of Wijnaldum, they would be able to cater with them because they have a week of preparation. So to some extent, the defensive weaknesses would be nullified, but I still think they would exist. And apart from that, मैं अपने टैग की तरफ आऊँगा. एक बात मैं बार बार कहता हूँ और जो मैंने खुद देखी अगेंस्ट साउथहैम्पटन, हमने पहले 45 मिनट्स बहुत बुरा खेला. मैं लिटरली अपनी ज़बान से मैं ये लफ्ज़ है कि यार अगर इनका नहीं खेलने का दिल चाह रहा था तो इसको यंगस्टर को खिला लेते, ब्रूस्टर को खिला लेते, जो खेलना चाहता था उसे खिलाते. इवन अ वीक बिफोर शकीरी वॉज लाइक कंप्लेनिंग कि आई एम नॉट गेटिंग इनफ प्ले टाइम अंडर क्लॉप. सो आई वुड मतलब कि उसने इजहार किया कि आई वुड like to leave Liverpool. So I was like कि क्यों ना फिर जो players जो खेलना चाहते हैं उनको खिलाते हैं. जब मुझे लग रहा था कि इतना ड्रैब गेम चल रहा है, इतना बुरा गेम चल रहा है, तो जो प्लेयर्स खेलना चाहते हैं उनको चांस दें. मेरा लिटरली साउथहैम्पटन के गेम से पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू था. लेकिन थैंक गॉड कि वी हैव गॉट 3 वर्ल्ड क्लास स्ट्राइकर्स. माने लिटरली स्कोर्ड आउट ऑफ नो वेयर. तो आई बिलीव कि लिवरपूल हैव गॉट अ फ्रंट थ्री एट द पीक ऑफ देयर पावर्स. Salah, Mane, Firmino, I guess all of them are 27 years old, or I guess Salah is 1 year younger. But these three takers are at the peak of their powers, and I still believe that they could win it for Liverpool. Even last season, Arsenal against Liverpool at Anfield, Arsenal scored first, but Liverpool went on to score 5 against them. So this is, I believe, that what is you call the firepower of a world-class front line. So I still believe that Liverpool would be able to get over Arsenal.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right कि Adrian is not the ball-playing keeper that Alisson is. Or Klopp said something really amusing in his post-match press conference. He said कि Adrian played a really good match like Alisson, so he was like कि मैं उसकी तरह गलती भी कर देता हूँ. But the point about him not being a ball-playing goalkeeper means that because his distribution is not as good, we give away more balls to the opposition. And that also means that we counter press more, but it also means that if a team is well drilled out Southampton, turnovers in possession mean that they get more chances to create shots for themselves. और इस तरह भी आप थोड़े डिफेंसिवली होते हो, बार बार उन्हें बॉल दे रहे हो, आपकी अगर प्रेसिंग नहीं सही हो रही या अगर आप कॉम्पैक्ट हुए हो पीछे से और आपकी बॉल जो है उनके पास चली जाए एंड देन यू आर एक्सपोज, तो वो वाला मसला भी हो सकता है. बट अपार्ट फ्रॉम दैट आई थिंक के एज फार एज द आर्सेनल मैच इज कंसर्न, डू यू रियली थिंक के ही इज़ गोइंग टू प्ले Oxlade-Chamberlain? Because we've seen with Klopp that whenever there's a big game coming up, whether it's in the Champions League, especially if it's in the Champions League, he plays his trusted midfield of Henderson, Milner and Gini Wijnaldum, or he drops in Fabinho at times. But do you think he's going to play Oxlade? Because the only time he played Oxlade in big games was, I think, against City, और वो भी I think एक specific purpose के लिए था, and he's not done so ever since Ox has been injured and then has come back from injury. Do you think he's going to go with him or that trusted midfield?
Well, I agree with you, Ismail, that Klopp has usually employed his preferred midfield of Henderson, Wijnaldum and Milner for the big matches. But the thing that I would like to point out at this time is that preferred midfield three of Wijnaldum, Henderson and Wijnaldum hasn't been kicking off lately. If we talk about those three midfielders, Milner, he has played 2 of the matches off the bench. He isn't been starting. Wijnaldum has started both the matches, but I personally think that he's still not up to the standards that he maintained over the last season, and this is one of the reasons that Liverpool hasn't been able to close those gaps between the defensive line and the midfield line. So at this point in time, I don't in particular think that Klopp would be starting with that midfield three, keeping in view the number of minutes that Milner has got so far and the Wijnaldum's form. So I personally think he'd be starting Oxlade-Chamberlain over Milner, or I guess Henderson. And keeping in view the Arsenal's defense, it's still something that hasn't been shored up, because against Burnley there were a number of defensive lapses that they had. As we know that Mustafi is almost on his way out of Arsenal, and the defensive pairing of Sokratis and David Luiz is still not up to a sufficient level.
To happen,
yes, you can say a disaster waiting to happen, because David Luiz, for his time at Chelsea, has mostly operated in a 3-man defense, and that 3-man defense was usually like Antonio Rudiger, Azpilicueta and David Luiz. Now David Luiz's strength doesn't lies in what you call his hardcore defending, like tough tackling, using his body to shove up the attackers. His best attribute is that he could play off long balls from behind, and he could build up play. He could play ball to the midfield. So that's what is his strength. And when you talk about Sokratis, उसका भी कोई इतना अच्छा टाइम नहीं गुजरा अभी तक इंग्लैंड में. So I particularly think कि Klopp, keeping in view the defensive frailties of Arsenal, or you can say deficiencies of Arsenal, Klopp would go with a more offensive midfield, so that Liverpool could exploit. And keeping in view the general history of this fixture, like Liverpool versus Arsenal, I guess Liverpool is like 22-8 against Arsenal in all the previous fixtures.
And Arsenal have only won a big top six away game I think they've only won 5 in the last 10 years, which is absolutely horrendous. So, or Anfield with Messi, I don't think they've won in ages, as far as I can remember. I think the last time they won was Brendan Rodgers' first year when Abu Dhabi was man of the match. That's my memory, at least. What do you think is the scoreline?
The scoreline for Arsenal versus Liverpool versus Arsenal, I would go with a 3-1.
I'd probably go for a 3-2 to Arsenal, primarily because I think their attack it just isn't talked about as much as it should be. I think Aubameyang and Lacazette are some of the finest strikers you'll find in the world. Secondly, I think their build-up play will largely be improved by the introduction of Dani Ceballos. I think the introduction of Guendouzi into the team of the past year has been a revelation. If they play Torreira as well and he's in form, I think that could also be another very good midfield that could also provide cover for their centre-backs. I think even though on their centre-backs, I think even though David Luiz has defensive lapses of concentration, I think on his day, when he has his mind in the right place, he can be a very good defender. And we saw that at Chelsea last year when he was in a two-man centre-back partnership as well. Particularly at the start of the season and at the end of the season, he was very good. In the middle, somehow he lost his way, especially I think the beginning was probably when they lost 3-0 to Spurs. I think that is really what hit him hard. But largely, I think I think they will manage to put in 2 goals. I think Liverpool will still be able to overpower them, though I don't think that Liverpool quite have enough either defensively or offensively right now to completely thrash them.
Yeah, I think that's fair. We've seen that ever since the Premier League started this season, each weekend we've had a big game. So on the first weekend we had United Chelsea. We're going to have Liverpool versus Arsenal this weekend. And last weekend we had Manchester City versus Spurs. And I think the only thing that was missing was that it wasn't nighttime and there was no overthinking by Guardiola. Otherwise, we'd be back in the Champions League. But similar scenes happening. We're going to talk about VAR, of course. But before that, from my perspective as a Liverpool fan, I watched that game and I was absolutely frightened by what City did to the third best team in the country. And I'm sure you as a Spurs fan would also agree. Pochettino, the Spurs players, the fans, you guys might not have understood how you got a draw out of that game. City had the better XG by a mile. They had an XG of 3.23 to Tottenham's 0.11. So Tottenham would, I don't know how they scored 2, let alone 1, but they did. And City had around 30 shots, which they couldn't take for some reason. And I think De Bruyne has come back in. He wasn't available last season and he's going to make them even better. And that is absolutely crazy because they have amassed a total of 198 points in 2 seasons. So Talha, what did you think of the match? Did you think Spurs were deserving of the draw? Keep a straight face while you say that.
I think this is daylight robbery. Like, I have absolutely no idea how he got through that result, but I think it gives you 3 main conclusions. The first conclusion is that there is no comparison in not just England, but I think in the world right now to Manchester City's attack and their possession play. I don't think that there's quite the combination in the world of players like De Bruyne, players like Bernardo Silva, who feed balls into people like Aguero and Raheem Sterling. I mean, Leroy Sané got injured and they had to unfortunately play the bang average player that is Riyad Mahrez. That is their backup. So if that's a worst case for their attack, then, I mean, it is absolutely frightening. I don't think that there's any way that with this kind of attack, barring any sort of serious injuries, they won't win the league. I think so far, the first impressions, they're absolutely miles above not just Tottenham, but also Liverpool. I think the second biggest takeaway from this, and maybe not that big a takeaway, but I think Spurs managed to hold on. I don't think many other teams would have been able to hold on. I think that's a positive that can be taken away from that, because if you look at lots of those shots, lots of those touches in the final third, I think Alderweireld and Davinson Sanchez managed to keep up with the pace. I think we were playing a young right back, our third choice right back, right now because we don't have Sergio Aurier, who's injured, I believe. He got injured playing for the Ivory Coast. We didn't have Foyt. He was not only injured but also banned for 3 games. So we were playing our third choice right back, and he was also doing a very good job, in my opinion, at 18 years old of keeping Raheem Sterling in check. But I think largely speaking, the biggest takeaway would be that City were dominant. I think the third biggest takeaway was that I think City need to still worry about why this keeps on happening to them again and again. Why, for example, was Spurs able to hold on today? Why were they able to score 2 goals? Why were they able to, for example, score 3 goals against them in the Champions League? I think that is also an overperformance from Spurs, and it has to do with very specific lapses from City. If we look at the Champions League goals, for example, they conceded 1 goal to a living tree in Fernando Llorente. They conceded 1 goal due to a horrible mistake by Aymeric Laporte. And they generally lost a lot of concentration on lots of occasions. So minor errors undermine an otherwise very solid display. Even today, I think their first goal that they lost, I forgot who it was who shot the first goal, I forgot?
Lamela scored.
Yeah, sorry, Lamela. So Ederson was way off his line. So
yeah, he was to the left and way ahead of where he should have been, and that was also an individual error, which is down to what City mostly concede.
Exactly. So why was Ederson so far ahead of his line? Why, for example, were they losing headers to Lucas Moura, who's 5'5"? These are answers.
Shortest guy on the pitch.
Shortest guy on the pitch by quite a mile. I mean, I think they're going to have to answer for these questions and make sure that if they're dominating a game for 80% of the game, they close it out, because this has cost them the game so many times. They've lost against, for example, teams like Newcastle last season. They've lost against Spurs in the Champions League semi-final. I don't think this will cost them the season. I think they're too good for that. But I think in a tight race, these sorts of things, these sorts of lapses are what cost them. And I think Aymeric Laporte, I think their other centre-backs like John Stones need to, get their act together a little bit when it comes to these sorts of defensive gaps.
Yeah, for what it's worth, I think it isn't going to be a tight race. I think they're going to coast clear by at least 6 points. But here's to hoping, right? But at the same time, I think you're absolutely right in the sense that whenever they do lose, and it's not a lot of games, whenever they do lose, it is down to them having lapses of concentration in both boxes. So either it's them conceding off a set piece, which they did to Llorente, coasting through a game, and then getting a shot or a goal that is absolutely against the entire run of play, or they people score worldly against them. I remember Andros Townsend scoring an absolute brilliant goal against them in the league, which they lost against Crystal Palace. Usama, do you think this shows us that at the end of the day, no matter how good Guardiola is, no matter how good anything is, no matter how good the coaching is, because if you know his philosophy is basically, I will get you to the box, and then when you're in the box, it's up to you, right? So finishing, I can't really teach you that. You have to practice it yourself. I am tasked with getting you to the final third. When you're in the final third, it is up to you. And you see that they are by far and away the best team in the world at arriving at the box with the ball, without the ball. और फिर उसके बाद उनका होता है 30 shots, अच्छे chances होते हैं. Raheem Sterling misses a sitter, something happens. This is not unusual. They score a lot of goals, but there are matches in which they should score a whole host goals more than they do. So do you think this is down to something that Guardiola should look at? Is this down to just something that's natural? I mean, a team can't win every game. Or is this something that City need to look at specifically, or they might be at risk?
Well, starting off, I don't want to take anything away from City. So first of all, I would simply like to praise them. I am a Liverpool fan, so I absolutely love Klopp. He's so adorable. His touchline antics are so lovely. Okay, wonderful personality, charismatic. I mean, he's giving hugs to his players and even opposition players. I absolutely love him. But there is one manager at this time in this world that I would like to give up on Klopp for him. And that manager is absolutely Pep Guardiola. Now, why do I adore Pep Guardiola so much that जिसके लिए मैं अपने चहेते या कह लें कि अपने प्यारे क्लॉप को देने के लिए तैयार होऊंगा? Because Pep Guardiola is tactically the most flexible manager in this world right now. The brand of football that his team plays, either you see Barcelona, Bayern or City, the brand is absolutely beautiful. I mean, I am watching, as a rival, I am watching City games. I am like, यार क्या मज़ेदार गेम है, देखने का मज़ा आ गया. Like, even if they lose the game, even if they draw the game, the game the City is playing, that's absolutely beautiful. I mean, when City is playing, जो overlaps हो रहे होते हैं, जो players की positioning होती है, that's absolutely wonderful. Even उस गेम के अंदर, most of their attacks were coming on from the right flank, like Bernardo Silva and De Bruyne continuously interchanging passes. एंड कितनी बार हुआ कि वहाँ से डी ब्रुइने ने ओवरलैप किया है और अंदर इतना प्यारा क्रॉस दिया है कि उस पर गोल ना हो तो मतलब बंदा कहता है कि यार ये क्यों नहीं, बस होना चाहिए था. मतलब एज अ राइवल आप कहते हो कि होना चाहिए था, इतना अच्छा क्रॉस है. तो गेम देखने का मज़ा आता है. सो दैट्स फॉर द रीज़न आई वुड लाइक कि अगर मतलब मुझे क्लॉप चेंज करना पड़ा किसी टाइम में, तो मैं अगर मुझे पेप गार्डियोला मिल रहा हो उसकी जगह तो मैं लेने के लिए तैयार हूँ. और उसके अलावा एक और बात यह है कि अगर आपको मतलब यकीन नहीं आता कि सिटी की गेम इतनी खूबसूरत क्यों है, आई प्ले फीफा, काफ़ी लोग खेलते होंगे, आप उसके अंदर फॉर्मेशन चेंज करके देखें. आप ट्राई कर रहे थे कि मैं ऐसे टैक्टिक्स बनाऊँ कि मतलब ज़्यादा से ज़्यादा गोल कर सकूँ. ठीक है, आई हैव पर्सनली ट्राइड अ नंबर ऑफ टैक्टिक्स. ठीक है ना, 4-2-3-1, 4-3-3, 4-2-2, 4-2-4. बट इवन मैं भी जो सिटी ओरिजिनल में गेम करती है उस लेवल तक अपनी गेम फीफा के अंदर लाने में पॉसिबल मतलब नहीं हुआ. तो दैट्स फॉर द रीज़न कि आई एडमायर पेप गार्डियोला सो मच. ठीक है, तो यहाँ होगी सिटी की तारीफ. अब हम आते हैं टॉटनहम के ऊपर. आई एम रियली डिसअपॉइंटेड विद टॉटनहम. फर्स्ट ऑफ ऑल, दे वर चैम्पियंस लीग फाइनलिस्ट लास्ट सीजन. ठीक है, दे ऑल्सो फिनिश द लीग ऑन द थर्ड स्पॉट. नो, व्हाट आई डिडंट लाइक अबाउट स्पर्स वाज दैट कि मुझे ऐसा लगा कि उनके पास कोई गेम प्लान था ही नहीं इस गेम के अंदर. लिटरली जैसे कि इस्माइल ने एक्सट्री की बात की, मेरे ख्याल से सिटी का 3.23 था, इतना समथिंग, और टॉटनहम का 0. something था. तो दिस इज
0.11.
0.1.
Yeah.
Damn. You can see the difference between the two sides. Even though it was a draw, there was a huge difference between the two sides. Spurs के पास literally कोई गेम प्लान नहीं था. अगर आप गेम के अंदर देख रहे हो कि ऐसे सोकर जैसा लंबा और तगड़ा बंदा जो कि हु इज़ अ डिफेंसिव मिडफील्डर बाय डिफ़ॉल्ट, वो ट्राई कर रहा है कि राइट या लेफ्ट फ्लैंक से बॉल लेके आगे जाए और खिला दे. तो दैट इज़ ऑल दैट यू नीड टू नो अबाउट कि हाँ भाई इस टीम के पास कोई प्लान नहीं था. ऐसा बिल्कुल नहीं होना चाहिए कि आपका डिफेंसिव मिडफील्डर फ्लैंक पे बॉल लेके जा रहा है कि आगे जाए क्रॉस दूँ या एक काउंटर स्टार्ट करूँ. डिफेंसिव मिडफील्डर कभी काउंटर स्टार्ट नहीं करेगा. आप बॉल खिलाएंगे, आपके विंगर या आपका फ्रंट अटैकर वो हमेशा काउंटर अटैक का स्टार्ट करते हैं. तो पहली बात तो ये कि मुझे लगा कि स्पर्स के पास कोई जेन्युइन प्लान नहीं था गेम का. फिर उसके अलावा ये कि स्पर्स के पास अगर आप साइनिंग्स वगैरह देखें, जियोवानी लो सेल्सो एंड डोम्बेले, ठीक है, दे वर इवन लिंक टू पाउलो डिबाला. तो आप ये भी नहीं कह सकते कि स्पर्स के पास प्लेयर्स नहीं है. ठीक है, उन्होंने लास्ट सीजन कोई साइनिंग नहीं की, उन्होंने पैसे बचाए, या कह लें कि इवन वो चैम्पियंस लीग फाइनल में गए, दे मेड अ ह्यूज अमाउंट ऑफ प्रॉफिट, दे मेड देयर साइनिंग्स, दे हैड द प्रॉपर टीम, दे हैड द टाइम. सो seeing such a drab performance, such a colourless performance for Spurs was disappointing on all grounds. So this is the reason I was disappointed with Spurs. Now coming back towards Manchester City, people are talking about De Bruyne, Bernardo Silva, Aguero, Sterling and all the striking firepower they have. लेकिन लोग एक बात भूल रहे हैं कि they are no longer having Vincent Kompany. People are completely ignoring the fact that Vincent Kompany was the one who initiated the modern Manchester City Renaissance. He was one of the first marquee signings of Manchester City, and he, alongside David Silva, Aguero, and Fernandinho, was one of the guys who stayed there when City was not at the height that they are right now, and formed his name and became a world-class centre back. And last season, that goal against Leicester was the highlight.
That goal killed me. That goal killed me.
As a Liverpool fan, that was an absolute banger. वो मैं लिटरली वो गोल जाके दिल पे लगा. मैं दुआएं दे रहा था कि हाँ ब्रेंडन रोजर्स ने हमें बचा ली है, उसने ड्रॉ निकलवा लिया.
मैं उस वक्त उसको कह रहा था तुम लो शूट, आई वांट यू टू शूट बिकॉज 99% ऑफ द टाइम दिस गोज इन रोजी. बट मैं जैसे ही कह रहा था हाँ लो उसने गोल कर दिया. लाइक शिट.
देखिए ना, लास्ट सीजन पहले कंपनी था इंजर्ड, ओटामेंडी और वो क्या कहते हैं एमरिक लपोर्ट, मोस्टली वो स्टार्ट करते थे. कंपनी वापस आया है, इवन दो इज़ नॉट योर बेस्ट ऑफ बॉल प्लेइंग डिफेंडर्स, लेकिन कंपनी वापस आया है. इट्स अबाउट द पर्सनैलिटी, इट्स अबाउट द overall character that you have in the dressing room, and most of all he is a leader. वो सिटी के कैप्टन रह चुके हैं, वो टीम में वापस आए हैं, उन्होंने वो गोल दिया है और वो गोल हुआ है. और लिटरली वो पॉइंट था जहाँ पे सिटी ने अपनी आगे मतलब उनका कॉन्फिडेंस बढ़ा है, गोल हुआ है, और वहाँ से मैं कहता हूँ कि वहाँ पे वो टाइटल जीत गए थे. क्योंकि एट दैट पॉइंट आई गेस 81st मिनट था, 79th मिनट था, सिटी वर आउट ऑफ आइडियाज़. उस टाइम वो कोई गेम प्लान नहीं बना पा रहे थे, मोस्टली दे वर शूटिंग फ्रॉम आउटसाइड द बॉक्स. उस मौके पे विंसेंट कंपनी आए हैं, उन्होंने शूट की है, गोल हुआ है. अब आते हैं इस सीज़न के ऊपर. जो मैनचेस्टर सिटी ने सेकंड गोल कंसीड किया है. It was, I guess, a corner from Eric Lamela and the first header of the game from Lucas Moura. In fact, his first touch of the game, and Lucas Moura scored. And as far as I remember, City were deploying zonal marking. They weren't going for a man-to-man marking. और जब मेरी बात ये है कि मैन टू मैन मार्किंग के इंतजार ये होता है कि जो इंडिविजुअल प्लेयर होता है उसके ऊपर रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी होती है कि उसने कैसे डिफेंड करना है. कह लें कि अगर आपका सेंटर बैक है उसने अगले का फॉरवर्ड को किया हुआ है तो उसकी जिम्मेदारी है कि उसने कैसे मार्किंग करनी है. लेकिन जोनल के अंदर एक या दो लीडर्स चाहिए होते हैं बैक लाइन पे जो आपकी पूरी जोन को कह लें कि गाइड या डिक्टेट कर रहे होते हैं. और सबको बता रहे थे कि तुमने यहाँ खड़े होना है, तुमने ये जोन डिफेंड करनी है, तुमने ऐसे करना है. तो आई गेस कि उस पॉइंट पे दे रियली मिस विंसेंट कंपनी. For as good a defender as Emerick Laporte, Otamendi, or other big names in those City backline were, they still don't have anyone of the caliber like Vincent Kompany. So I believe that his leadership qualities would be missed this season at a number of occasions, like they missed against Spurs. There is always someone needed who could organize you in those tough situations. Because देख लें आप जितनी भी अच्छी आपकी टीम हो, जितने मर्जी अच्छा आप अटैक कर रहे हो, you are always one mistake away from conceding a goal or a single, or you can say minute defensive lapse away from a goal. Even you can say the 2009 to 10 Barcelona, even again Pep Guardiola ki Barcelona thi, they got kicked away out of the Champions League by Inter Milan, but still that was a great Barcelona team with Xavi, Iniesta, all of them at their peak. और वो क्यों हुआ? इंटर मिलान ने गोल निकाले किए, उसके बाद डिफेंस किया, नहीं हो सका. तो इस तरह यू कैन नॉट ऑलवेज रिलाई ऑन योर ग्रेटनेस. अगर आप डिफेंसिव कंसंट्रेशन लूज़ करते हैं, आपके पास लीडर्स नहीं हैं जो मतलब उसको मेंटेन रख सकें, क्योंकि 90 मिनट्स की गेम है. अगर आप 89 मिनट्स अच्छा खेलते हैं, आप 1 मिनट बुरा खेलते हैं, उसके अंदर गेम चली जाती है. तो कोई ये याद नहीं रखेगा कि आपने 89 मिनट्स अच्छा रखा, सब याद रखेंगे गेम ड्रॉ हुई है. तो ये बात होती है. सो ये मैं समझता हूँ कि विंसेंट कंपनी की जो एब्सेंस है, सिटी वुड मिस देम ओवर द कोर्स ऑफ सीजन, इवन इन चैम्पियंस लीग. सो आई बिलीव दैट City would still win the Premier League, according to me, because of the strength and depth they have over the whole squad. But I believe that at a number of occasions they would miss Vincent Kompany's leadership.
Right, Talha, he talked about how he was disappointed with Spurs. Since you are the representative for Tottenham Hotspur in this room, what do you have to say?
I just have to say that I think most of us were disappointed with Spurs, and the reason isn't always obvious. I think one thing people miss about Poch, that they don't notice about it when we were talking about this earlier, is that he is very defensively flexible, but often can fail. Very tactically flexible, but can often fail. And that's a big problem. So he can sometimes play 3 at the back, sometimes he can play 2 at the back, sometimes he can play 2 up front, sometimes he can play 3 up front, sometimes he can play with no wingers and just a diamond. He can do quite a lot, and the problem is that sometimes he'll change for no ostensible reason, and it cannot work off, and then he changes at halftime when he realizes it isn't working, and that's exactly what's been happening right now. So the problem with Tottenham right now, I think, is that it's, even though we have new signings, the only real one that's been integrated is Ndombele. Giovanni Lo Celso was a deadline day signing who still hasn't really played. He played a few minutes at best, I think, against Aston Villa. Secondly, there was Sessegnon, who's also injured. Dele Alli is also injured, so we're missing quite a lot. And on top of that, Serge Aurier is also injured. And Son is banned, so there's quite a little bit of disruption to the team. But on top of that, I think Poch has added more disruption through 2 problems. Number one, I think there's something going on with Vertonghen. They're not playing Vertonghen. They didn't play Vertonghen against Aston Villa, and surprisingly, he wasn't even on the bench.
I heard he's injured. Is he not?
He's not injured. Poch was asked after the match, is he injured? He said no, he's not injured. Then he was asked, then why isn't he playing? He was like, some players need to be shown that, they need to perform to get into the team, which is an insane thing to say about Vertonghen.
I think he's your best defender.
I think he's one of the best defenders in the world, and it is absolutely insane why Poch would do that, and why he would do something to such a senior player who's been with Tottenham for so many years. Maybe if he was some random kid acting out, trying to fight for a place in the team when he didn't deserve one. A player, let's say, who's refusing to train because he's not being put in the team. We have heard no such reports about Vertonghen. He's been an absolute class act for about a good, half a decade, closer to a decade. And that makes just absolutely no sense. And I think that has shaken up the defense quite a lot. Secondly, I think we have a disgruntled midfield primarily because of the uncertain future of Eriksen. In the previous match, Eriksen did not start. When he came in, he was an absolute revelation. This game, he started, but obviously on the back of your mind, a transfer is there. He wants out. He wants to go to Real Madrid. He wants to go to Juve or wherever, Barcelona. There are quite a few places that he'd want to go. And he's also refuted a new contract, which is offered to pay him over 200,000. So that's obviously at the back of his mind. There's no way it can't be. So with injuries, bans, suspensions, and these sorts of backroom problems, it's no wonder there are problems. Some of them are created by Spurs. Obviously, the Vertonghen issue is one that it's created by Spurs. The Eriksen one, I think, is one that's created by Spurs as well, because they've been paying him 80,000 for so many years, which is absolutely nothing for so many players. They've been surviving on peanuts, absolute peanuts.
I still don't get how they're still there. I mean, for 80k, and with you like hearing about Rashford earning like 250,000, I think that's absolutely mad.
And Callum Hudson-Odoi is gonna get a contract of 200,000.
Yeah, and
pounds.
Eriksen's on 80k.
Eriksen's on 80k.
Kane's on 150, right?
Kane's on 250 as of this year. But they were only offered new bumper contracts with like 200k or 150k salaries per week last year. So up until then, we've been paying them peanuts in a very competitive wage market. And obviously, Eriksen can increase that salary even further, through leaving as a free transfer. I don't think he will, because he didn't do so with Ajax. When he could have left on free with Ajax, he signed a 6-month extension just so Ajax could get a little bit of money out of him. So I don't think he's that kind of a player who'd leave on a boss-man contract. So I think there are some man-made problems at Spurs when it comes to manhandling, when it comes to player managing, and when it comes to play time, especially for Vertonghen. They sold Trippier without a replacement. I have no idea why. They're possibly selling Serge Aurier as well. It makes no sense, and they should probably get their act together soon.
That's the match out of the way. The main point, the last talking point of the match, was VAR, and I feel like we've been here before. We've discussed Tottenham versus Man City, and we've had to have a long chat about VAR. This time around, it's in the Premier League. You have someone like Ian Holloway saying it's the European Union's fault that the VAR is this way. Nice one, Ian. But apart from that, I think there's a real problem, not with the technology itself. I mean, in a way it is, but with the laws and the way it's been framed. So firstly, for me, the problem lies in how the laws have been written. The law now says that if a goal has been scored, in the build-up to that goal, if it touches a hand, like in any circumstance, natural position, unnatural, you're like a centimeter away from him and you hit the ball, whatever, if it touches your hand or the arm, it's a handball. And now in that situation, you will most likely see VAR like turning on the microscope and looking at what we saw happen when they looked at Laporte's handball, because it actually is a clear error in terms of how the law has been framed. I mean, it touched Laporte's hand. It should have been looked at. The problem then becomes, okay, so that's one of the issues, right? So the second issue then is that you have certain things like what we saw during Wolves versus Man United. You saw that the offside rule, okay, says that the attacker has to be in line with the defender when the ball is touched and played through. But you see VAR looking at, and this actually happened on our TV screens, they were actually drawing lines to see where his shoulder was. I mean, these laws are now being taken to a ridiculously serious degree, in the sense that they were created in the first place to, maintain a decorum of the game. Like, so the offside rule was created because you didn't want goal hanging. People like, I'm pretty sure Javier Hernandez wanted the offside rule scrapped. Who wanted to just stand next to the goal and, shoot and score like we do and like when we play. They want to stop that, they did. But now you're going to the degree where you're looking at कि भाई किसी का shoulder तो नहीं आगे 3 centimeter, his finger, I mean the finger doesn't count, but his a scalp of his, his scalp is like ahead of the defender. I mean, it's very, very weird. So Talha, what do you think? Which part of VR don't you agree with? What's wrong? Was Laporte's disallowed handball correct or not?
So there are two. Well, the first part is I don't think that any of this is the fault of VAR. I think it's the fault of the rules, because the rules were made with the understanding that any sort of clear and obvious problem would be pointed out, that referees can take out inchy tape and measure by the millimeter. If someone's offside and they're being called offside, they're probably very clearly offside. So I think VAR is just implementing the rules as they are, and the rules were meant for the human eye. Now, when you introduce, much more accurate measurement, I think it makes the decisions far more arbitrary. So there are two issues. Number one, the issue of like arbitrary calls. So like, does being 3 centimeters offside, even though you're technically offside, does it get you any real advantage? It probably doesn't. So it is making rules far too arbitrary. And that's a problem. And that's more a problem with, as I said, the rules themselves, because they weren't meant to be that arbitrary, because no one thought that you could actually take out inchy tape and do this sort of stuff. But now the rules are being implemented to the nth degree, to the most precise degree possible. You're going to have more and more calls like this. I think obviously there's going to be a fair amount of backlash. I don't think VAR is going to be blamed. I think most people are realizing that it's a problem with the rules. It's a real problem when you're saying don't apply the rules. It's, you're more criticizing the rules than you are, any sort of system that's applying them.
Right. So I think VR is to blame in the sense that how it's been typed up. So clear and obvious is in itself a very vague statement. What exactly does clear and obvious constitute? Clear and obvious could mean the Laporte handball. I'm not really sure how clear and obvious that is. I mean, according to the new handball rule, it might be. But in terms of offside decisions, what is clear and obvious? That is something that VAR itself is, that needs to look at. That had nothing to do with the laws of the game beforehand, but now since VR has been applied, it has become, relevant what clear and obvious means. Apart from that, I think if I were to, think about how I'd go about solving this issue, clear and obvious could mean that anything that takes longer than, I think, 10 seconds. I mean, that would be arbitrary, right? Mm-hmm. So anything that takes a certain amount of time, which they could set, if it's still unclear what the decision should be, if it takes you longer than 5 or 10 seconds to look at it and go, well, I'm not so sure about that, can I have like some sort of person checking his shoulder? I mean, that is something that is clearly not clear and obvious. So Usama, what do you think? Is clear and obvious the issue? Is VAR itself the issue? Do you like certain human elements involved in the game? What's your take?
Well, first of all, I would like to talk about the element of emotions in this whole VAR decision making. I mean, if you have scored a 92nd minute winner at first place, you as a player and your fans and your coach and the whole technical staff, you're supposed to celebrate like hell. You're supposed to go crazy, and that's absolutely what happened. As soon as, I guess,
twice, by the way,
as soon as Gabriel Jesus scored, the whole ground erupted. All the technical staff, the players, everyone was like going crazy, and they were like, the City has once again scored the winner. But soon, referee, I don't know who he was,
Michael
Oliver, he said that it's going for a VAR check, and as soon as the goal was rolled out, the whole energy was kind of streamed out of the ground, and you could see Gabriel Jesus like completely speaking shit on the referee. Ye kya tha? Ye aise
he's not VR's biggest fan, is he?
Yep. So that's the part of the VAR that I hate. I'm not sure what can be done of it, because at the end of the day, even if it's VAR or it's not, at the end of the day, a human is supposed to make the final decision. So yes, a decision could go against you, a decision could go in your favor. So yes, at times it could leave you heartbroken, at times it could leave you happy. So yes, I think that the error could not be totally eliminated. There's the thing in science, I could say, called it human reaction error. We can also integrate it here, that the problem, or say the minimal error, would always remain there. And as you talked about the point of clarity, I guess, so I am exactly not sure that how they should be implementing it, but I personally think there should be a a certain amount of time that should be given to the video assistant referee to like give the decision. Like you cannot keep everyone on hold for like 1 or 2 minutes and still be like, oh, I'm
Yeah,
not
and
sure
then you
what's
ask the
happening.
referee कि तुम जाके देखो, वो भी कुछ 6 दफा देखता है, उसको भी नहीं पता चलता
There's
क्या
a
हो
number
रहा
of time के मतलब video assistant referee is like examining the whole situation, then the ground referee goes to the office and there he says like it takes out the spirit of the game. Like everyone's waiting that कब decision आएगा, कब आगे जाएंगे. And one of the things is here कि अपने emotions को control में इतना काफ़ी मुश्किल होता है. मतलब आपको अगर गोल हुआ है तो आपको सेलिब्रेट करना है, गोल नहीं हुआ तो आपको फ़ौरन मतलब प्ले सेटअप करके अगले दोबारा गोल करने की कोशिश करनी है. सो आई थिंक आई स्टिल थिंक देयर आर सम थिंग्स दैट need to be changed in terms of VAR, and obviously there are things that need to be changed in terms of rule themselves, because जैसे कि इस्माइल आपने बताया कि Laporte's hand was like I guess a few centimeters away from the ball, and he wasn't even watching the ball. He was just in his motion like going for a header, and unfortunately he touched the ball and that was given as a handball. So I personally think कि handball होना तो नहीं चाहिए था. मतलब it was totally unintentional. मतलब I remember I guess Aguero's words, he was like कि अब वो अपना like he could have chopped off his shoulder to avoid that handball.
Yeah.
No,
Sorry
that's
to
not
cut
possible.
you off, but I just remembered another thing that is very weird about VR in that this game exactly. There was this huge incident which off a corner. I forgot who was holding on to who.
Eric Lamela, I think, was holding. Eric Lamela was definitely holding on to someone. I think it was Rodri.
Yeah, I think that those are
yes,
the two people. And Pep Guardiola was furious about that because that, I mean, it's the same thing, right? Does that constitute as a clear and
Sorry to
obvious
interrupt.
error?
Pep Guardiola said that VR was drinking coffee at the time.
Yeah. So, but like that's the exact entire point, right? Is that clear and obvious enough? What is clear and obvious enough?
I'd just like to say on that. Firstly, when it comes to clear and obvious, I think I agree. It's hard to measure. It's subjective. But the problem is every single rule in football is subjective. So, for example, a foul, a penalty, was it foul play? Was it intentional? Was it dangerous? Those are all very subjective measures. So I think what you need to do is try and make it as fair and thorough as possible to try and get maybe multiple opinions. I think that's the best way to make a subjective opinion as acceptable as possible. So that's, I think, what you have to really try and focus on. As far as this specific handball goes, I think it's a damned if you do, damned if you don't moment, because the problem is there is no solution to this that would be truly fair. So let's say the goal stood. If the goal stood, then Tottenham fans could have very fairly argued, Jesus would have never gotten to the ball and would have never been able to had that specific touch, be able to get the ball in that specific position, had it not touched Aymeric Laporte's arm, even if it wasn't intentional. Secondly, on the flip side, there's obviously what City supporters are saying, that it wasn't intentional. What was he supposed to do? What is he supposed to chop off his arm? All these sorts of things. So I think it's a damned if you do, damned if you don't moment. I don't know which side is the right side, because I don't think there is a right side. But I think that we should stray away from any sort of further arbitrary rules like, let's say, time limits, because that could also be just as unfair. So let's say there was footage that you had which would have shown a clear and obvious error in judgment that you could not have shown within 10 seconds. I think the problem is there are two big problems. Number one, there's an efficiency problem in VAR that's making it too suspenseful, too long, and too drawn out, which means that players, for example, are waiting for long periods of times. Fans are waiting for long periods of times, and it's frustrating. I think the main problem people have, besides the decision, is how the decision is brought about. So we need to make it less frustrating by trying to make it more efficient. Have, for example, all the angles already ready. Have, for example, more referees there.
No, as far as I know, I think all the angles are ready. They just don't show it on our screen.
But one person can't look at all the angles at the same time. You need...
as far as I know, I'm not sure about the Premier League, but in the World Cup, there was more than one official for the VAR. I haven't really seen I think I saw it once. I think there was like 2 people at least.
Yeah, but when it comes to lots of decisions, you're taking like... Again, I'm taking into account like the amount of time you have. Like if you only have 10-15 seconds, that is not nearly enough time for 2 referees to watch all the angles. So I just wouldn't, I wouldn't try and make it that arbitrary.
Yeah, but the point is the reason why I'm saying 10-15 minutes, I think VR should only be used in what I'm going to cap as what they say clear and obvious. And if something is clear and obvious, for example, Maradona's hand of God, for example, and the Chelsea goal against Cardiff last season, I don't know if you remember, but that was a clear, like, at least 3 yards offside. Okay? And Cardiff went on to lose the game because of that decision. That didn't need any angle whatsoever. Maradona's hand of God didn't need any angle. Those are clear as daylight decisions that could have been overturned. They are what you call daylight robbery decisions, and those are the decisions I need that VAR needs to look at. It is like the goal line technology. Simple yes or no. You know it's good, you know it's bad. When you need multiple viewing angles, when you need more than 10-15 seconds to look at something and say, hey, I don't know, maybe can you give me that angle, that's where I think you don't need to go. That's my point.
I disagree, because I think, for example, I'm thinking more in situations where, let's say, that the image is obscured, let's say, by one angle. So especially when it comes to fouls in the box, there are many angles you show which just won't show the incident at all. So for example, last year, remember, there was a goal against Man City by Willy Bolly. It was Wolves versus Man City. It was very clearly off of his arm, incredibly clearly off of his arm, but the referee couldn't see it, and many other people couldn't see it on first glance because, you know, it was a crowded box, you know. But once you got that one perfectly clear angle, it was daylight robbery. So I think those sorts of things can still take more time. I don't think we should put that sort of a limit on it. I think one way we can make things less suspenseful is by making the communications better and more efficient. So one big problem people have is, we already celebrated for about 30 seconds. We look like idiots. So I think initiating VAR faster, notifying people of initiating VAR faster is one way. And secondly, notifying people of decisions faster and more clearly is also, is also important. So I think the big problem for many people is just the confusion. Are they going to initiate VAR? Are they not going to initiate VAR? When are we going to get our decision? What was the decision? So all of those sorts of things just may add to the confusion, add to the frustration. If we can remove that, I think the VAR controversy will die down quite a bit.
One thing that I've noticed is that there's a lot of VAR chat in England specifically, and the discourse around VAR is kind of very controversial, very extreme in England. One league that has had VAR for like one season now is La Liga, which we're going to talk about right now. But
I think the Bundesliga as well.
Yeah. But just specifically, I want to talk about La Liga in the sense that you don't really hear a lot of stuff coming out of La Liga in terms of how VAR is being operated. The Bundesliga as well. And last week we saw Barcelona play Athletic Bilbao. It was an away game for Barcelona. Lionel Messi wasn't playing. And like we've seen in the last 6 games that Barca has played without Lionel Messi, they did not win. In fact, they went on to lose thanks to a beautiful goal by Aduriz, who's probably 38 now, I think, and he scored a bicycle scissor kick,
retiring at the end of the season.
Yeah, and that was one of the best bicycle kicks I've ever seen. And we're back to talking about yet another season of Barca not being very good without Messi. They have all the players. They have, all right, let's forget about the back line for a bit. They have now Frankie de Jong in midfield. They have Sergio Busquets. Ivan Rakitic isn't liked by many people, but I think he's good. There's also players like Vidal who can do a job. Then in attack, they have like all the firepower in abundance. They have the best player in the world. They have Suarez. They have now Griezmann. They have Dembele, who's out, but still he was playing that game. And they're looking to add Neymar, which is ridiculous. But the point is that even with all this firepower, even with all the quality that they have, to play against a team that is far weaker than them, to play the sort of football that they were playing, which is bland, slow football without any sort of intensity, without any sort of creativity, they were very good at getting in and around the box, and then they had no idea what to do. Why are we still, after 3 seasons of Valverde, talking about how the team is nothing without Lionel Messi?
So yes, there are a number of problems with Barcelona right now. Number one is that they haven't gotten their signings over the last 2 years like on point. The signings haven't been totally successful. Number two, Valverde's tactics haven't been what you should be expecting from a Barcelona manager. I know Valverde has done an excellent job at Athletic Bilbao, but Valverde's tactics have been moving Barcelona away from what has been called Johan Cruyff's philosophy. And number 3, as you mentioned, Ismail, that they are dependent way too much on Lionel Messi. That when he's not there, Barcelona looks completely different team. Now let's come towards these points and explain them in detail. Talking about the signings in particular, Barcelona has moved from the philosophy of promoting youth players from signing Galactico players. I mean, let's talk about the most successful era in the Barcelona's history. I mean, the period from 2008 when Guardiola arrived to the period, I guess from 2013 to 14, from I guess where Tito Villanova
100 points that season.
100 point that season. So I guess that was a peak Barcelona, and the major success factor behind that Barcelona side was that most of the players like Busquets, Pedro, Xavi, Iniesta, Messi, Piqué, and even Jordi Alba, who came on, who was at Barcelona academy years ago. Most of the players were from their La Masia academy. Now, what has happened in the recent years is that starting right from the Neymar signing, they went on towards Galactico signings. They stopped trusting their youth players and they started signing marquee players. And that is one main reason that I find is that they haven't been able to live up to their usual standards of
marquee
heights.
players bhi chodo, they just bought players that made no sense. I mean, Vidal is not marquee. He's 30. He was 32 when they bought him. What's his name? Paulinho is nowhere near a marquee signing, and he's nowhere near a Barca signing.
They got Kevin Prince Boateng for last season.
Yeah, and he played one game and he was so bad.
He never even played a match for Barcelona, I guess.
I think he played one game and he was absolutely atrocious. So, yeah, continue. Sorry.
No problem. So that's one point, that Barcelona signings haven't been on point lately. And now let's come towards Valverde's tactics. Over the course of 3 years, he has been employing either 4-3-3 or 4-4-2. Most of the time he has used 4-4-2. And this 4-4-2 formation has mostly been rigid. The players have been instructed to stay intact with their positions. They are not supposed to leave their positions or interchange their positions. And mostly it has been Gerrard, Piqué, Umtiti, Jordi Alba, and Sergi Roberto at defense. In midfield, it's mostly been Rakitic, Busquets, Messi. Messi is either a forward or a right winger, and on the other hand, it's usually Coutinho, who has now left Barcelona. And at front, it's usually been Suarez, and initially there was Paco Alcacer, who didn't play much for Barcelona, but he was usually used in the rotation. So in this 4-4-2 formation, Barcelona basically moved away from what is called free-flowing football. In early years of Pep Guardiola, you could usually see the midfield trio of Sergio Busquets, Xavi, and Iniesta usually interchanging their positions. Like you could see them all over the pitch, like forming passing triangles, and then playing ball in behind to the fullback. Then Jordi Alba coming up with an overlap. And even in the early years, Dani Alves and Messi combined to a very, very good extent on the right wing. So that was what we were accustomed to seeing with Barcelona. But now in these late years, what you are usually saying is that Messi is cutting in from the right, then he's sending a long cross to Jordi Alba, and then he's completing an overlap, sending in a cross, and there's usually Suarez in between to score. And now what happens in this formation is that Sergio Busquets, I personally admire him as the best center defending midfielder from the period 2009 to 2014. His positional sense, his composure, his reading of the game, it was superb. I still believe like he was the best defender, even ahead of the likes of Andre Pirlo, Alex Vidal, and that great Juventus team. So yes, Sergio Busquets is now not that great of a midfielder as he was before. He is now 32 years old, I guess. He's not that much athletic. He's not that much physical, but still he is a great player. And as for the Rakitic, he is also now towards the downside of his career. He's above 30. He's declining. He's not the same old player. So I mean, forming a two-player pivot in the center of the pitch, and though that too with players of age 30 years above, it's not the bestest of ideas. And then as far as that formation of 4-4-2 is concerned, when you talk about this formation, it was mostly used in the era of late 90s, early 2000s. You could see two strikers, two wingers, and two central defenders mostly playing in a game. But that's not the case lately. Lately, most of the managers have been using tactics of three-man defense with overlapping fullbacks and a very mobile front three. So this is the most recent trend. Now, I don't know that why Valverde has been using these tactics when he knows that these aren't usually working. And mean to say, nowhere, and I don't want to take anything away from Valverde. He has won 3 La Ligas, I guess, for Barcelona, but he has failed in Champions League. Now the reason is that Messi, he's very good. He's a world-class player. He's able to rescue Barcelona in La Liga matches. Like, I don't think apart from Real Madrid or occasionally Valencia and Sevilla, there's no other team that could really threaten Barcelona over the course of 90 minutes. Messi only needs 1 or 2 moments to produce his magic and he's able to score. And that's mostly how Barcelona has been succeeding in La Liga and in Champions League over the last 2 years. And this leads up to the point of ultimately, as I called, Messi dependencia. They have been depending overly on Messi. Okay, they have seen little or no creativity from midfield since the days of Iniesta. Last time, I guess, Iniesta was a genuine midfielder who was pouring in crosses or some valuable assists coming in from midfield. Busquets, Rakitic haven't been up to the point lately. So it's mostly been Messi free kicks or some individual Messi dribbling and like creating play out of nowhere that Barcelona has been relying on. And mind to say, teams are built up on collective success. ऐसा नहीं होता कि आपका एक प्लेयर आपको मैच जितवा दे, हर मैच में परफॉर्म करे और एक गेम खेल लेगा अच्छी, दूसरी खेलेगा, तीसरी
और
खेल
लियोनेल
लेगा.
मेसी मतलब कि एक आई वुड से ही इज एन एलियन. ही वुड गिव यू, if he plays 40 games, 50 games in a season, he will give you 47 or 48 world class games. But the problem is, जिस एक दो गेम में वो world class नहीं खेलेगा, I mean, ठीक है, इतना 99% उसका सक्सेस रेट है in terms of being world class. But even in that one game in which he doesn't perform, if we look at the AS Roma away game, for example, in the Champions League, that was his one bad performance of the entire season. And Barcelona, the problem with Barcelona is they don't have the spine, they don't have the necessary backup available for them to, you know, bail Messi out in certain situations in which he needs bailing out. और last season जब आप, और कभी कभी ये भी होता है कि मेसी अच्छा भी खेल रहा होता है और फिर अगले प्लेयर्स इतना बुरा खेलते हैं दैट दे जस्ट डोंट विन. सो फॉर एग्जांपल अगेंस्ट लिवरपूल एट एनफील्ड, व्हाट अ मैच, बट एट द सेम टाइम लिवरपूल वुड नॉट हैव बीन एबल टू डू व्हाट दे डिड इफ in the first half Messi created 3 chances, clear chances for his teammates. All 3 of them were missed. They just didn't finish. And that's one of the reasons why I think the flag has been on Valverde so much, because लीग आप ठीक है 3 जीते हो, लेकिन उन 3 लीग्स में आपके पास मेसी वॉज डूइंग आउटरेजियस स्टफ. जिस दिन मेसी इंजर होता है, वेलवर्डे के अंडर ये रिकॉर्ड है, जिस दिन मेसी नहीं खेलता दे आई थिंक more or less just lose or draw the game. They haven't been able to win without Messi. तो वेलवर्डे को लोग क्वेश्चन करते हैं.
और एक और बात यह बार्सिलोना की कि since the transfer of Neymar, Barcelona brought in first Dembele and then Coutinho. Now the thing is that Dembele has been terribly inconsistent partly due to his injuries. Whenever he has played, he has shown the flashes of quality that he has, but mostly he has been injured. And when he is playing, he doesn't completely shows up that like he's completely integrated into the system, like he knows what he's supposed to do. He doesn't seems like fully fit, और like वो वाइब नहीं आती कि मतलब परफॉर्म करेगा बार्सिलोना गेम जितवाएगा. अब बार्सिलोना की प्रॉब्लम ज़्यादातर सीज़न ये रही है पिछले कि बार्सिलोना के पास कोई प्रॉपर विंगर नहीं है. मतलब दे साइंड मैल्कम, दे इवन हैड एलेक्स विडाल हु वाज अ इन्वर्टेड विंगर, बट स्टिल बार्सिलोना वर टेरिबली लैकिंग इन प्रॉपर विंग प्लेयर. नाउ व्हाट हैपेंस इज दैट कि अगली टीम्स को पता है कि इनके पास मेसी है, सुआरेज है, इनका मेन ऑफेंस यही दोनों प्लेयर्स हैं. द ऑपोजिशन टीम्स मोस्टली स्टैक अप द सेंटर ऑफ द पिच. दे लाइक टू क्लोज इन द स्पेसेस एंड दैट बिकॉज दे नो कि बार्सिलोना में किसी ने ओवरलैप नहीं करना विंग्स के ऊपर. इनके पास कोई प्रॉपर विंगर नहीं है जो मतलब क्रॉसेस देगा अंदर. इन्होंने अल्टीमेटली यही करना है कि मेसी एक क्रॉस फील्ड पास खिलाएगा एल्बा को. वो तो जब इतनी प्रेडिक्टेबल गेम हो जाती है इस स्टेज पे आके, तो ऑपोजिशन के लिए गेम रीड करना, डिफेंस सेटअप करना ईजी हो जाता है. आपके पास एक भी विंगर हो ना, जैसे लिवरपूल में हम बात करते थे कि माने जब आया तो माने वॉज अ सोल विंगर आउट देयर एट लिवरपूल, और जब माने खेलता था तो वो स्पेसेस ओपन करता था. कोई भी विंगर आए वो गेम को स्ट्रेच करता है, कॉर्नर्स तक लेके जाता है, आपकी जो ऑपोजिशन की डिफेंस लाइन है वो खुलती है, स्पेसेस बनते हैं, इस तरह गेम बनती है. अब आपके पास विंगर ना हो तो ऑपोजिशन को पता चल जाता है कि हाँ यार इन्होंने अटैक करना है बिल्कुल मिड से, तो बस आप मिड स्टैक कर लो तो इनकी गेम आगे नहीं चलेगी. तो ऑपोजिशन ये करती है. मुझे
और उसको कॉम्पैक्ट मिड के अंदर मेसी टाइप प्लेयर ही गोल या चांस निकाल सकता है. नॉट many other players have the ability to do that. Well, we've been over an hour here and we've covered a lot of things in detail. This was great, guys. Thank you so much for coming. I hope you come on the show in the future as well. Guys, please don't forget to follow us on our social media pages. We're on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and we also have a YouTube channel, which we're going to, convert to video soon. And apart from that, we're also on every major podcasting platform out there. So do check us out. Thank you so much for listening. Until next time, Allah Hafiz.